I attended a ritual at Bohemian Grove, and I have some disturbing secrets to share. Hello X, I'm here to tell you my story, straight up, with no bullshit. This is something that took place during the early 90s and not recently, so I feel that with the amount of time that has passed, I would already be dead by now if they wanted me to be. It's unlikely they'll see this story anywhere, and even if they do, I'm just one of many in a long list of fucked up individuals who have been invited there over the years to witness all of the sick and twisted things that they get up to. Let me start by saying that I will not be giving names of either myself or any other individuals involved, nor will I be disclosing any other locations other than about the grove itself, other than what I think is necessary for you to understand my story. I work in the Hollywood industry, or I used to. I'm not some super famous celebrated director or a shit-hot actor, but I have worked on a lot of movie crews for some of the most successful films throughout the 80s until the early 90s and made friendships and connections with a lot of powerful and important people. I am, of course, long since retired from the industry, and all of my connections are lost to me now, if I am even remembered. In the moment you make friends, and everyone wants a piece of you, but if you do a single thing wrong, or fall out of the scene for even a short while, then you are forgotten and replaced as quickly as you can blink. It's more common than you think. Relationships formed through Hollywood are as fickle as they come. I know a lot of questions that will be directed towards me, and that even I would ask myself, and there would be something along the lines of, well, how did you not already know that Hollywood was corrupt and fucked up? Surely it's an open secret at this point. To which I can only say that I didn't even know the half of it for a long time. I mean, sure, you get the hotshot assholes who think they are invincible and abuse their powers. There are a ton of abusers in the industry, to the point where it isn't even given a second look. During the 80s especially, nobody gave a fuck as long as you showed up and acted your heart out, or at least enough to make a kick-ass film. You had your typical drug abusers and addicts just itching to get off the set to get another sniff. You had your alcoholics who could barely function enough to get from scene to scene before they drive home drunk and then beat the fuck out of their partners or their children. You would have the scammers who would scam not only their fans, but their friends too, in any way that they could to get ahead. People use people as stepping stones rather than having them as allies. So yeah, I knew that Hollywood was full of raging narcissist, abuser addicts, but I thought that was the full extent of it. Hollywood has a side to it that is even deeper and darker than what you think is the darkest and most secretive. I can't tell you exactly who invited me, but let's just say, he was a big shot, a massive star, and even in the early 90s, he was already quite old. He isn't dead yet either, but even that information does not narrow it down enough for you to have a clue. I won't be making any mistakes that will get me killed. I'll transition to Greentext here to make it a little bit more readable. This all started in the early 90s, but I won't say exactly which year to provide my identity with an extra layer of protection. We had just come off the back of a massive movie release, so naturally, we were all celebrating. I didn't attend the premiere or talk to any press or anything like that, as I am not important on that level. I was, however, invited to a party that was scheduled to take place a few hours after the premiere and would run into the early hours of the morning. I knew some of these people well, but like I said, off the set of the film, I am kind of disposable, and it's not like I ever had any celebrities sending me any emails to hang out often. So, this was a big opportunity for me. This was an opportunity for me to try and network and or make friends with and impress other stars or other industry insiders who could get me on other projects. I knew what the industry was like, and I knew I wasn't going to go in there and be best friends with a pit-level star. So I was just going in with the mindset of making my way up in the industry. I had a strict plan to not drink or do anything that would impair my senses. I did pick up a bottle to nurse throughout the night, so I didn't look like a loser, but that is by the by. The beer nursing did not last long. By the time I pulled up, the party was already in full swing, and let me tell you, everyone was overly friendly. I don't think there was a single person there who wasn't on something. The venue was sweet. It was some decked out mansion way out in the hills, and had everything you could ever dream of. Security seemed surprisingly lax at first glance, which I guess kinda made sense, considering that trying to pull any stunts out here would not go down well. Taking a closer look though, it was clear that the place had a lot of people ready to jump in if you knew where to look and how to spot them. The place was armed to the teeth, but the security guards were blending in with the normal party attendees. They were all wearing a similar outfit, which is what originally made me do a double take. That and a white t-shirt and a pair of slacks can only hide a gun so much. They were also wearing discreet, in-ear earpieces that were skin-colored so that they would not stand out on first glance. I don't think the plan was to have them fully covert, but just enough so that the party experience wouldn't be ruined by seeing security getting involved with things. Plus, once you get drunk enough, you probably wouldn't pick out these signs anyway. I was greeted by some people I had never seen before on the way in. I assumed that they were background crew, just like I was. I was cordial and greeted people on the way, and rushed to grab some shitty low alcoholic percentage beer in a bottle to help me blend in. Trying to slowly weasel my way into a conversation at this point was not going to work with how fucked up people were, so I just went straight up to a group and joined in. One I recognized immediately, as he was a director I had worked with previously on a much smaller project when he was not as prominent, and the other few people in the group were small fry actors. I'm talking like Z-list straight-to-home video actors. Nobody gave a shit who anyone was at this point. Booze was flowing freely, as well as other substances, and the director grew friendlier and friendlier with me. At this point I got way too into the party, and I kind of failed with my original plan. I was accepting drinks from everyone. I felt like I just couldn't say no, and that maybe it might help with my social skills. At one point in the night, the director tells me to follow him. He was like, "Yeah, seriously, I have something to show you. Come and look at this." We get up to the top floor and outside the room of the door, and he tells me to be cool and just pretend that it's every day for me. Walk in. There is some insane version of strip poker going on. Dudes doing drugs off other girls, having to do sexual stuff if you lose, and etc. Probably one of the least outlandish things I could tell you about the party, but that is not why this scene is important. Director friend introduces me to earlier mentioned mega famous actor star. Dude is sat at the table butt naked, with a girl doing a line of coke off his burner, and he is extending his hand out to me for me to shake. Genuinely such a surreal experience. It felt like some kind of stupid, nonsensical dream. I stand in disbelief for a second until director friend nudges me and I shake the guy's hand. Again, I won't be giving any names just in case. They invite me to the table and I join in on the game. I fucking suck at poker, so no luck from me that night. Director friend hands me a pill at one point and tells me to take it. I ask him what it is, and he just tells me it will make me feel really, really good. My guard was down from the alcohol and other activities going on around me, so against my better judgment, I gulped it down and won, and we continued on with the game. The night went on, and the famous star, who I will just refer to as Star from now on, started talking to me more and more. He eventually starts telling me about this club they are a part of, where the parties go on basically forever. All the most famous people attend, and that it would be the experience of a lifetime. He told me that I seemed pretty cool, and that he would usually never ever invite strangers or outsiders into one of these parties, but he was willing to make a special exception just for me. I got played. My director friend set me the fuck up, knowing I was an easy mark, who was desperate to impress, and worked my way up, and star-buttered me up in just the right way to get me to let my guard down. Whatever they gave me didn't exactly give me the power to resist either. He said they were heading right now in their private jet that they had on standby, and that they would bring me with them to check it out. I said fuck it. I went with them. I genuinely thought this was going to be one of the best experiences of my entire life, and that I could just not miss out. The flight took a couple of hours, but nothing of note really happened. I was too out of it to feel anxious or out of place, and just kept acting like I was part of the team. We touched down and made our way down, but before we got to the entrance, Star stopped me. He told me that there was a big problem that he forgot to mention. You see, while this is an invite-only club, and you've got my vouch as well as everyone else's, that isn't the only requirement. He went on to tell me that the club requires a flat payment fee up front, even if I was not going to be a permanent member. He told me it was to weed out undesirables and make sure that only the finest people were allowed inside. Before he told me how much, or before I could tell him there was no way I could afford whatever the price would be, he started speaking again. It's okay, don't worry. We are all friends here, right? Again, I normally would never do this, but I'm willing to waive the fee just for you. I mean, it would be rude after you came all this way, right? Anyway, all new members have to do an initiation. It's sort of a dare, I guess you could call it. It promotes camaraderie and shows that you really want to commit to the experience. Since I waived your fee, how about you take part in 2 dares as payment instead? I really didn't understand what he was asking exactly, but I said yes instantly. I didn't want to seem like a loser or offend anyone, considering they were offering me such a massive opportunity. They let me in. I get searched, and security is present at every corner. I get led to some outside section, where there are already a few people with chairs in a sort of semicircle. I guess he told them about a new member already, because they did not seem shocked by me being there. Star introduces me, tells them how we met, and for who, and my role, and what work I have done. He does a speech that I only really half understand, and then tells me it's time to complete my initiation ritual. He picks out a guy sitting near the back and tells him to get up. He is expressionless and gets up and walks over to us without even a murmur. Really robotic shit. Star tells me that this guy is going to be helping me with my initiation, and he hopes that I won't fail. It never crossed my mind that I could fucking fail. Star told me that the initiation will be simple, since I would only be a temporary visitor. He points to the other guy and tells him to pull out his penis. When I tell you, my heart sank to the floor. I could not be further away from exaggeration. I don't want to go into too many details about this part, because to this day, it makes me panic thinking about it. He told me I would have to drink yellow. I laughed at first, thinking it was some elaborate prank, and that it wouldn't go any further than that. But the look on every motherfucker there was stone-faced and silent. Star is looking at me deep in the eyes like, hurry up. I start saying how this was a mistake and that I should go, and the guy from the crowd slaps me across the face with his open palm. He tells me that Star told me to do it, so I have to do it. I look back at him, and he gave me a stare that went deep into my soul. After it was over, I had tears welling up in my eyes, and I was ready to get the fuck out and go home. Star comes over and grabs me and tells me to relax, and that my initiation was easy compared to everyone else's. He told me that I was lucky, and that I shouldn't waste the opportunity now that it's over. I was trying to fight back tears as I asked him about the second initiation. He chuckled and told me that it was okay, and not to worry, because I didn't need to do it anymore. He told me that I had proved myself more than enough for his approval, and that all I need to do is relax. He addressed the group and got all of us to gather around, and he told us that he had something fun to show us. Without another word, he just walked off, and the crowd started to follow him, not far behind. After a little while of walking, he led us to a kind of cellar entrance, but when he opened the doors for it, I could see that the descent was much too deep for it to just be a regular old cellar. He stood by the open doors and motioned his hand towards it, and everyone immediately started funneling down it. I was the last one to go down, and as I started to descend, Star patted me on the shoulder and told me not to worry. He told me that the hard part was over, and that this next part would be the most fun I'd ever had in my entire life. I got all the way to the bottom, and there was a kind of tunnel that we had to walk through. It was quite short, but had a massive door at the end. Star walked to the front of the pack and told us that we were in for a treat. He told us that he had fresh blood for the entertainment tonight, and that it was not something that we wanted to miss. He pushed the doors open, and I was met with an insane sight. There were tons of seats lined up, and it looked like we were on the second, or maybe even the third floor from first glance. Peering over the edge of the balcony, and I could see a big cage on the ground, kind of like an MMA cage would be set up for a fight. Inside the cage was a kind of arena, like a boxing ring, but not the same shape. It was larger and much less compact. It was maybe 3 boxing rings in area all joined together. It looked like 2 men were already practicing for a fight, and they were really going at it. There were no coaches down there or any other staff that I could see, and there looked to be a pool of blood forming and dripping over the side and out of the cage. That wasn't even the most surprising part. There were cages all around us. Not literally, but there were cages above and below us, suspended in the air. They were tiny and cramped, kind of like a cage you would use for a dog, but not as big. There were fucking people inside of them. Men, women, children, just hanging in midair in cages. Some were sleeping, some looked incredibly malnourished, and some looked like they were itching to fight someone. I tried to stop Star and ask him what the fuck was going on, but he just told me to hush and to just enjoy the matches. He told me and the rest of the group to sit, and I didn't see what other choice I had. Star pointed to 2 men in cages who were much lower to the ground, and told the staff that he wanted them next. The staff got to work getting them out of their cages, and attached a collar around their necks, which they held with metal chains. The men they chose were restless, but after beating them, they soon submitted and gave up on trying to escape. Star shouted to the staff and told them to be careful. He said he didn't want them to be too used up before the big show. Star went down to the main floor and picked up a microphone. He clearly took some kind of sick pleasure in this. It was nothing but a joke to him. He started announcing the fight like he was a professional boxing announcer, and kept pausing every couple of seconds in order to stifle his laughter and compose himself. He said it was going to be a fight to the finish, with no rules, aside from no weapons. He told us to make our way down for front row seats, and after we made it down to our seats, he commanded for the 2 fighters to be put into the cage. It was horrible to watch. The 2 men were not young, maybe in their 30s, but they were both stick-thin. They looked so weak and sickly, like they wouldn't even be able to lift up a plate. They both staggered around like zombies, side to side, and towards each other, clearly trying to conserve as much energy as they could. The sounds of the punches that they threw were horrible to hear. The punches were wonky, and the movements were not graceful. I had to listen to the sounds of bones cracking as their fingers broke under the force of their own punches, as the 2 men took blow after blow to their legs and shins. One eventually overpowered the other with a kick to the face after the other fighter had fallen to his knees. One swift kick was all it took to break his nose and send blood flying outside the cage and onto us as we heard the sudden snap. The fighter with the broken nose seemed to be unable to move anymore. He struggled as hard as he could, but his arms did not have the strength to lift himself back up to his feet anymore. We could only just make out him saying, "I give up," through the blood in his mouth and his mumbling with his face pressed against the floor. Star shot to his feet and announced the winner and congratulated the winner. He told him that he had won the fight and passed his test, and that he would honor his promise and let the man go free. He said that there was just one more thing that he had to do. He told him that it was a fight to the finish. Star opened the cage and tossed a baseball bat inside. He told him to finish it and that he would be free. The winner of the fight rushed over to the bat and made absolutely no hesitations in his actions. The man on the ground began to whimper and cry for the blood and the tears that had now begun falling. I think he was crying for maybe 5 seconds in total before we heard the crack of the bat and he fell silent. The winner did not stop. Hit after hit and blow after blow. He just kept hitting the guy on the floor's head over and over again. After the man was nothing but a bloody puddle in the arena, Star told his security to get the man out of his sight, and they subdued him quickly, put a bag over his head, and carried him out of the arena. I don't know if they let him go or not. The cleaners got to work instantly, but they could only do so much. The sight and the smell made me want to throw up, and I wondered just how long those men had been in there. Star came over to us and asked if any of us wanted to take part in a fight. He said that we could pick anyone we wanted, free of charge, and even offered to give us advantages in the ring for a price if we weren't sure of ourselves. He told us to take him up on the offer quickly, as this was only the first piece of entertainment for the night, and that he had many other places to take us in the Grove. One man stood up and said he wanted to go, said he was bored and could use a good workout. He was a little on the older side, maybe in his 50s, and he had a little bit of weight on him, but he was not overly fat. The man who volunteered asked who he could pick from, and Star said that he had free choice out of anyone in the room. He pointed at me and asked for the fresh blood. I was immediately like, no fucking way am I getting in there and doing that shit. I stood up, and some of the security was immediately on my ass, starting to crowd around me. Star told me to relax. He told me that members never fight to the finish, and that people will be on standby to make sure that we were both okay. I said I didn't want to, and he reminded me about not paying the entry fee, and that this was my way to settle my debts. The group we were with shamed me and gave me evil looks, but I was still not prepared to do it. I wasn't using my head. I wasn't thinking about what might happen to me. For some reason in my head, there was a disconnect between me and the men I had seen in the ring just earlier, and that I was safe somehow. Like somehow, he could not do the same thing to me, or kill me, or keep me in a cage. I thought that he wouldn't do it, because someone would notice, or it would be too suspicious, and bring too much attention, but that was a stupid train of thought. Star noticed I was not going to give in, and he told his security to get me in the mood. I'm not professionally trained, but I can throw a punch, and didn't want to make it easy for them, but I had no chance once 3 of the security team descended on me. I got a few punches to the head as a reward, and they threw me into the arena. Star asked the old man if he wanted to pay for any advantages, and the old man asked what was on the table. Star offered him weapons, to have me beaten before the fight starts, or to have me drugged or handcuffed. He asked about the weapons, and Star offered him a gun. He refused, and said that it would be too quick, and instead opted for a hockey stick. Star did his same announcement as before, and let the old man into the ring, and told us to start fighting. I have never been so scared in my life. I was told it was not a death match, but I did not fucking believe him. The old man stood staring at me, waiting for me to make a move. It was obvious he was just waiting for me to slip up, so he could beat me with the hockey stick. He clearly wasn't nimble enough to chase me around the arena. My heart was pounding out of my chest as I made slow, inching movements towards him. I tried to make a sudden lunge for him once I got into range, but I was so focused on controlling my heartbeat and anxiety that I placed my foot wrong and slipped onto my knees. The man immediately went for a full force swing while I was on the ground, but I managed to move to my right just in time. The man still managed to catch my leg as I moved and pulled me onto the ground, and my face fell straight into the arena. I felt my nose crack, and I was in instant pain. Within the same second, the old man took a swing and hit me in my ribs with the hockey stick, and I jolted away and back to my feet as quickly as I could. He got one more hit in before I got up and out of the way, this time catching me in my kneecap. It hurt like hell, and I could barely keep pressure on it anymore. I thought that it was all over, and that I was going to die. I knew I could hardly move away from him now, and that all it would take was one swing, and he would have me, and I would end up dead. I knew I could not run now, and that standing would be useless, so my brain went on autopilot, and I did the one thing I could think of, using pure instincts. In the moment, it was just a gut reaction, but thinking about it, it was the only thing I could have done and used to my advantage. I shuffled further into range of the old man, and instead of running, I jumped downwards to the floor, right at his legs, and tackled the old man to the floor. I caught him completely off guard, and he let out a yelp. He was trying to maneuver with the hockey stick to block me, but I punched him in the face. He was trying desperately to swing it at me, but he did not have enough room to apply force. He turned the stick to the other side, and started to jab me in the face, but my instincts had taken over, and I would not stop punching. He jabbed me in the eye with the blunt end of the stick so hard that I felt it pop, but I did not stop punching until he dropped it. I got off him after that, and I was immediately hit by the surge of pain. Star announced me as the winner, and he told me that I had completed the initiation and repaid my debt and was now free to go. The old man was laying on his back, wheezing heavily. Then Star told me what I fucking feared, what I knew he was going to do. He told me that I had to finish the fight before I could leave. I shouted no at him and told him I would never kill anyone, and he pulled out his gun and pointed it towards me. He told me I would either finish the fight or that he would finish it for the both of us. I picked up the hockey stick that was now on the floor, and the man begged me, in between his scrambling for breath, as he did his best to hold back his sobs. He told me he would give me as much money as I wanted, that he had a wife and kids he wanted to see. I ended the fight. I really had no choice. Star congratulated me, and that was when my vision went blank. I woke up I don't know how many days later, with a bottle of vodka in my hand, and tucked up inside a sleeping bag inside of a homeless camp. The place stunk, and I asked where I was and what the fuck was going on. One of the homeless people told me that I joined the camp a few days ago, raving about some fight that I had, and telling everyone how strong I was. They told me I offered them booze and money and drugs to be allowed to stay, and they accepted without another word. Told me I had been out for about 2 days, and they did not want to disturb me. They told me they had no idea who I was. Turns out I was in fucking Oregon, some shitty little town called Grants Pass or something like that. I picked up my shit and made my way home as fast as I could. I had no money or anything on me, and when I tried calling the people I knew, no one would pick up. Not a single person would answer the fucking phone. I had to beg the homeless in the camp for enough change to get the bus and shit, and make my way back home. My house was fucked up when I finally made it home. The place was trashed, and my things had been stolen. It was obviously a threat, and I made no hesitation in getting the fuck out of there and moving. That was my last day in the industry. Anyone that I knew refused to accept my call, and it was obvious that no one was going to believe me over Star. Plus, they could just say I got wasted and use the homeless guys as a witness. I was fucked. There are very few people I have ever told the story to over the years, and even fewer have believed me. I have been lurking this board for the last couple of years, and reading the stories from other people has been a bit of a coping mechanism for me. I finally plucked up the courage after seeing a few threads recently about encounters with powerful people and people being abused. Whether real or fake, they inspired me to finally share this here and get it off my chest. I'll answer any questions that you have, X, as long as they don't put me in any jeopardy. I cannot disclose any names, just in case. Thank you for reading. Alright, I will tell a story my uncle told me that his coworker told him I know. My uncle works at a national lab, contracting, so he is not exactly employed by the government. Uncle's co-worker and his superior decide to go to some old part of the site one day. They find one old shack. That's it. Only one old small building. They go inside. It's an elevator. StrangerThings.jpg. It is one long hallway with a turn at the end. In my uncle's words, you know the letter T? This hallway's got hospital-style wallpaper. Like children's hospital-style wallpaper. My uncle's co-worker and his superior began walking down the hallway. When they get to the turn, it gets worse. Hospital rooms with hospital beds, sized for children. As they get to the end, the rooms get worse. Cages. There are cages in the abandoned underground children's hospital. I don't know what the government was doing, but I absolutely believe my uncle and his co-worker that they were doing it. I forgot to mention that they noped the frick out of there after they saw the cages, and that there were marks and scratches on the walls of the rooms with the cages. Back with what I think might be a Bigfoot story. 9 to 10-ish. Camping with my family. Out by a river, pretending to fish. Really just throwing rocks. Hear breathing and sniffing sounds. Silent mode enabled. About 10 yards upriver, a fucking bear appears. Pure terror and paralyzed from the hair down. Bear turns, looks right at me, starts rushing at me. Rock out of fucking nowhere pegs the bear in the head. Bear runs off in the other direction. Noped my fat ass out of there. Family doesn't believe the rock part, but we leave anyway. Whether or not it was Bigfoot or some hobo, the fucker saved my life.